webcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Best Practices Navigating Uncharted Territory webinar with NYAPT. We're going to give everyone about a minute to file in, and then we'll be right back. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, The Future of School Transportation, What to Expect in 2021 and 2021 and beyond. We have a great panel today. I'm very excited about that. And we're going to be covering some very nitty-gritty stuff. We're talking about ventilation in buses and vaccines, the return of field trips, as well as sporting activities. But first, I would like to welcome Transfinder's President and CEO, Antonio Civitella, to welcome everyone. So, Tony.
Hello, everybody. Rick, can you hear me okay?
I hear you. You sound great.
Oh, wow. Well, happy Thursday. I mean, days are flying. Rick, we were all in the office yesterday. I went home a little late last night, and I think it was around 7:30 p.m., maybe almost 8 o'clock. Do you know that in my car dash, I think it's at 47 degrees. So I just want to tell you, area is 47 degrees. Like, wow, I feel it. So today I'm back home. I have the windows open. It's not 47 degrees out today, but do you guys feel it? It's spring is coming. I can taste it, right? I can smell it too. So guys, well, let's get into what we're doing here today. Like, remind what you're doing today. Thank you to the panelists today. And of course, I want to thank the Executive Director of NYAPT, Dave Christopher. Thank you for allowing us to partner with you on all these important issues that we're all covering and resources, what's going on with everything, of course. We know that NYAPT and really Dave and really all your leaders have played an incredible role here, and really as part of this pandemic that I can't believe it's almost a year. We're coming up on almost a year that we're going through here. Of course, New York State has been, all eyes have been on New York State since the first day, and it's still out there, right? Where everyone's looking at what's going on in New York. So of course, that's where we're going to continue being leaders, and we're going to continue just being really figuring things out. I keep talking about that. Our goal is to figure things out, but because of we're in the forefront, and because of that, today is another important topic we'll be covering. A few of those things, obviously. The school bus ventilation, the good news is now people can start opening up these windows, which you couldn't do that, even a month ago. Clearly, the vaccines, what does that mean with, vaccinate, get vaccines, and at what point do we get those? As the numbers gets lower, the age group is going to get lower too. So what's going to happen? I really can't wait to hear people's insight about that kind of stuff. And of course, at what point, maybe we talk about at what point, or at least we could estimate, at what point could we start hugging each other again, right? If we're all vaccinated, is it a year from now? Love to hear that from somebody. Again, it's just opinion, I know it. And of course, a lot of things going on around sports and field trips. Love to hear your point of view in this area. We finally went below 4%, so now all the kids are playing basketball. It's so much fun. Gilliam here, the school district I'm in, a couple of nights ago was a seniors night, and so that's exciting. So some of the parents, at least the girls basketball, they were able to attend. Wow, I feel like it's a little bit back to normal, a little bit. So these are all good things that I can't wait to hear all from the panelists and really all you guys. I want to also remind you that these are webinars are always recorded. You can always find these on the best practice page of our transfinder.com homepage, so you'll be able to find that kind of stuff. And one last reminder, we have Stop Finder Communication that's offered at no cost to clients or prospects. So if you're interested, please let us know. You can always email at freestopfinder@transfinder.com, and we'll love for you to get this product. It's offered until the end of this year, which is end of school year, which is June 30th. But again, it's communication, communication, and communication. So, but I'm talking too much. I can feel like Rick is tugging me. I can feel him. Just want to really thank you, everyone, to participate and make time today. I want to introduce Dave Christopher, the Executive Director of NYS. Again, thank you so much, Dave. And that's it. Let's have a great session like we always do.
Thank you, Tony. And thank you for your partnership, absolutely, with these webinars that we're doing every month. Seems like every month that you come into this and you, well, what are we going to talk about? And then at the end of the day, we come out with a lot of good ideas and some really good, favorable feedback. And secondly, I want to thank you for your partnership with the Winter Workshop. You presented our Winter Workshop, and it was a very successful Winter Workshop. You played a role in that. Thank you very much for your support in our Winter Workshop. We weren't sure with a virtual workshop how folks were going to respond, and I can tell you that we had a great response, just a little short of our usual number for attendance. So we were very happy with that. So thank you for your expertise and your time that you took, along with your trade show staff who participated in the trade show as well. So today we've got a lot of topics to talk about. I want to get right to those because the experts are the people who I'm going to introduce here, not necessarily myself. So I'm going to start off with our NYS President, Ted Nugent, Transportation Director of the Coxsackie-Athens School District. If you recall Ted from the Winter Workshop, those of you who attended, did an excellent Master of Ceremonies job. Bill Harvey from the Honeoye Falls Lima School District. He's NYAP's legislative chair and certainly a very knowledgeable transportation director who always has great things to share with us. And last but not least, Rich Gallagher from the Bayshore School District. And Rich is the chair of our safety committee and also a past president of NYAP. So thank you folks for being here. And I don't want to forget Rick DeRico, our Master of Ceremonies for this function. Where are you, Rick? There we go. Rick keeps us going here, and certainly appreciate that, Rick. So
thanks so much.
I will turn this over to you because you're the lead dog here in this show. So
you are one of the experts. So
you're on.
You definitely are one of the experts. So definitely appreciate all that you have done to get us through a very difficult time. I think, as Tony kind of alluded to, it feels like the light is at the end of the tunnel. And it's not a train coming at us, but it's feeling glimmers of hope here. I just wanted to start, like we have in the past, with a little bit of a twist on a little bit about who you are. We'll end with you, Dave, because you have a different role, of course. But if Ted, Bill, and Rich could just share a little bit about you, your district, but also how has your leadership style changed a little bit as a result of COVID-19? So I'm going to just start with Ted and then go to Bill and Rich, and then Dave, give us your sense, because your leadership style, you just mentioned, the digital, the Winter Workshop, and you had to make some changes on the dime. So go ahead, take it away, Ted.
Well, good morning. Ted Nugent, Transportation Director here at Coxsackie-Athens. We're in Greene County, just south of Albany, New York. Been doing this since 1982. One of the big things that, as Rick alluded to, the changes in what we do now as transportation directors that we didn't necessarily always do. We're always flexible, but this has really forced us to make adjustments on the fly, adapt to new procedures, with all the different things coming across from the state and the local health departments, to be able to adjust and make those adjustments with our staff and our colleagues. So just really the push to be flexible, understand everybody else's concerns and what they're thinking, and to make everything to come together and just be part of the team to make it all happen.
That's great. Thanks, Ted. Bill?
Hey, Rick. Thanks for having me again today. Glad to join you with today's discussion. I've been in the transportation business for about 37 years and have enjoyed participating in these discussions and probably learn as much as I share. So I think as far as my leadership style, one of the things, a takeaway I would have from the last year and operating in the pandemic is leaning harder on my inner circle, right? Because typically, you know, especially you get some of us that have been in the business for a long time, and we kind of know the business, we know what we do, and we repeat little process improvement here and there, but to be hit with so many things that we don't know exactly how we're going to do it resulted in you know, me pulling the inner circle together and bouncing ideas and having conversations with drivers. You know, we put together a team, and that was critical. When it comes out, I look like you know, the hero, because we have answers and we have a good plan and everything, but it was a total team effort. So
Can I, before I go to you, Rich, can you give me a glimpse of what that means by your inner circle? Because I think some people may really like that idea. So what does that mean for you, the inner circle?
well, to me, that would be, you know, if you will, like in the district, we have our leadership team, right? And that's all the administrators, principals, assistant principals, directors. So here, my leadership team, you know, would be my head drivers, my dispatchers, my trainers, 19A, and then we had a couple of, and my mechanics. I don't leave out my mechanics. I had all the mechanics in initially. I not just my lead mechanic, but all the mechanics, and so, and then a couple of drivers. So we had a group, and we would do Zoom meetings. But that was my inner circle is always, you know, my head mechanic, my trainers, dispatcher, driver, head driver, etc. And we expanded that a little bit to include some mechanics and drivers. So that was good stuff. And I honestly, I give the success that we've experienced here in our district all credit due to them.
That's awesome. That's great. Super. Thank you. And Rich, last but definitely not least.
Good morning. Rich Gallagher, Bay Shore Schools. We're in Suffolk County, Long Island, New York. I've been here almost 20 years, in the industry 30 years. I think two things that I've changed this year, even though I've always tried to maintain current on what the regulations are and guidance that's coming out, I put more of an emphasis on that this year. And I try and anticipate what's coming in the school district a little bit more than I did in the past. Like Bill said, we all had our systems set up that we kind of, you know, did things by, but that doesn't work this year. There's too many variables in it. So you have to kind of anticipate a little bit better and file things away for improvements for next year based on what you've seen and what happened and those types of things.
Great. Super. And then one quick question, and I'll kind of blend them together, and then we'll get right into the topic at hand, which Tony alluded to, the ventilation and vaccines, et cetera. Just how have things changed for you since the beginning of school in September, but even just since January, since, you know, the holiday season, and now we're back. Have things changed? And I'm like, this is not directed at any one person, but anybody seen any? Have you already had to be even flexible this year, and or what kind of things? And then the other kind of follow-up to that is, have you started to see ridership return to somewhat normal levels? So I'll kind of combine those questions together. Anybody can grab that, or all of you can grab it.
I guess I'll tell you what we've done. We brought students back starting January 29th at the end of the first semester, moving as many students off of remote onto in-person instruction, and depending on grade level, whether they're in-person or hybrid. And now we're starting to bring back other grades, like bringing back, we have K through 5 full week. Now we're starting to bring back 6th grade full week. And we have plans on dates to bring back the other grades, even to the point where we'll have all seniors back in school during May and June. So that's what we're working on, and it's a constant change. Routes keep changing, the numbers on the bus keep changing, and answering the questions about how many kids you're putting on the bus seems to be the most prevalent question that I'm asked.
Great, thanks, Rich. Ted or Bill?
Bill, go ahead.
So our changes really since the first year have been similar to those that Rich has seen. And it's really just an influx of kids. I call them opt-ins. You know, I have two different folders, you know, for opt-ins, opt-outs, but we're seeing opt-ins now. So we're getting a lot. It seems like daily there's little chunks of kids coming back, and we're planning to come back. We're also seeing private parochial schools or special ed sites that may have been fully remote, as Rich was saying, that they've come back. So a lot of movement towards getting things back. We have seen the increase in ridership that you spoke of, Rich, but not back to normal. We're far from normal yet. So that's really been the big change is getting people in, adjusting the routes, assigning seats. That's been the work, is getting people back in. And I think we're going to see that continue. I would predict, at least in our part of the state and specifically in our district, I would not be surprised to see us get everybody back in prior to the end of the school year. So I think that from here out, we're going to just continue to see change and I won't say turmoil, but there'll be churn, right? Everything's going to, the sports has been the other thing that we just had an abbreviated part 2 winter sports high contact. Monday we start fall sports part 2. We're plowing our turf field, right? So it's like, it's different, but we're getting through it.
Already? Isn't there ice on the field?
Well, there was.
That's true. How about you, Ted? Anything you want to add to that?
We're actually different than my colleagues here. We've been in person since we started in September. Our K-12 has been in person. We've had, obviously, parents can choose to be remote if they wanted their child remote because of it, but we've been running in person since we started the challenge, and we noticed a huge spike after the holidays is tracking what I call the no-fly list that I share with our buses of who can and cannot be on the bus when they come to a stop. That increased dramatically after the holidays. That was a huge task between our nurses and our internal staff and the documents that we share to be able to get that relayed to the drivers on a daily basis. That was a huge moving target.
So who's on that list? What qualifies you to be on that? You said it's called a no-fly list?
We call it our no-fly list. So any child that's been exposed to somebody that might have been COVID positive, if it was a family member, our district has quarantined the whole family. So if the child in the elementary school was exposed and they're out, or for a symptom they might put on the daily checklist, then our whole family is quarantined. So it could be a middle schooler, a high schooler, and an elementary student that all gets put on what we call the no-fly list. So they're not allowed on the bus. They don't come to school that day until they're cleared by our nurses and our medical staff.
So could it be at a bus stop though? And then what do? You wait till mom and dad come back out and pick them up, or what do you?
So most of our stops in our district are door to door. We have some village stops, mainly for our older kids. So we've had kids come to the bus stop and we have not gotten the clearance from the nurses yet. And the driver radios in, they have the list and they know who cannot be on their bus today. And we communicate with our nurses and say, no, sorry, John cannot be on the bus today. And the driver waits there until he goes back to the house.
And then one quick question.
I have a question, and I don't know if you guys can answer this, but as kids come back on your buses, and obviously your numbers are going to go up. Did any of your policies severely restrict you in terms of social distancing or numbers of kids? And now you're having to deal with that because your numbers are going up. I know across the state that's a concern that I'm hearing. And if so, how did you handle that?
That has not impacted us to this point. Much like Ted, we started back with full attendance 5 days a week with K-6 and 7 through 12 were on-off alternate weeks. So, but we also, our policy, our back to school return to school plan that we had to have, we stated that we would not exceed 2/3 capacity on our buses, and we have not yet had to deal with that threshold. So we're okay so far. But if we get everybody back, there may be a few routes that we have to deal with. I think we're in pretty good shape.
As far as the COVID students were concerned, Dave, we put them off the bus for the 10-day or the 14-day quarantine period, but once they came back, they were never removed from the list of students assigned to that bus. So the numbers didn't change of the students that were assigned to that bus. And once they were medically cleared to come back, they were just a regular student. So there was no additional requirements on where we could sit them or how far apart they had to be. They were totally medically clear at that point.
We're, I didn't say this at the start of the webinar, so I said, but I usually say as part of my spiel that if anybody has any questions, this is very much a conversation, and we will get to them as soon as we can. I'm thankful that you didn't need that from me to say that, because we're getting some great questions. So if you don't mind, we do have a list of questions, but I do want to get to these because they're right in what we're talking about right now. So I have two right now, and they're both very good questions. First one comes from Stephen, and anybody can answer this. He asked, has anyone increased the number of students that are allowed on the bus? Now, some schools had, a third of the, seats. So anybody seeing an increase in what you're allowing on the bus? Go ahead, Rich.
Yeah, we've gone up to the adult seating capacity on the bus, which I believe a lot of districts across the state started at that point. We've gone up to 43 children on a bus, mainly because we need the space and it doesn't really cramp them in. We don't want to put 3 to a seat, but 2 to a seat has been okay. And with the windows open and the ventilation going, we haven't seen any increase in problems.
Okay. Ted or Bill?
We haven't either. We set our capacities at 2/3 capacity, and Rich has got just another way of saying that. He's kind of going with his adult capacity, which really equates to about the same thing. And so we have not had to go back to our plan and make adjustments. I know some districts started off with very minimal capacity, with maybe, like, if you followed CDC guidelines recommendations, you might only had 7 to 9 people on a bus.
Yeah.
So, but no, luckily we were able to start with a greater capacity. How about you, Ted?
We've done 1 per seat except for family or households. So we're still maintaining that. We actually, if somebody comes back in, we actually make sure there's a spot for them on the bus before they're approved to come from remote back to in person. So we're still at this point maintaining that 1 per seat.
And I think to that point, I think that was the point that I was driving at. If your original plan was, minimal numbers on your buses, and now, students are returning, and you can't meet your minimal plan, your plan in terms of spacing, how do you handle that? And obviously, we just can't keep adding buses because we don't have the buses or the drivers. What I'm told, and from other school district administrators and school transportation directors, is that plan that you built back in the spring and the fall, or spring and the summer to open schools, is your local district plan that you submitted to the state. And it's all right to amend that plan as long as you communicate that to your community in terms of maybe numbers of kids on your buses going from 10% up to 50% or 60%. So I think there's a lot of transportation managers out there, directors, supervisors, who are concerned as the numbers rise, what do I do? And my understanding is you can amend that, but you need to tell your community that you've amended that. So, obviously check everything out with your school district, but that's my understanding.
Yeah, and that holds true with every aspect of that plan, right? Like in our, we had to have a transportation return to school plan, and there was, in the buildings, and that comprised the overall district plan when you put them all together. Right. And I have, on 2 different occasions now, we've gone back and looked through our reopening plan to make sure we're still aligned. Mm-hmm. And so when we're foreseeing change, that's one of the things I'm looking for, is like what might change there that I would, and we can change it, as Dave said. That's my understanding. We can amend our plan, but we would need to share it back with the education department and with our community.
Yeah, we've changed ours. Our original plan said 21, and now we're going to adult seating capacity with the superintendent's approval.
Good.
So this next question, I'm not sure is related necessarily specifically to COVID, It's from Rachel, and she asks, how are you handling the safety issue of mixing different grade level students on a bus for the non-public schools? That's probably the same pre or post COVID, correct?
Right, and that would be the same with the public schools, right, too? I mean, we're mixing grade levels when we pull into our elementary school. So the way we're handling that, and we have from the start, is that that bus is considered a group, that's a cohort right there. So I realize that their cohort might be different when they're at home and when they're in their classroom. But, we talk about a classroom cohort and those kids eating lunch together and going to specials together, et cetera. So we're treating the bus as a cohort, and they may be in different grades, and mostly they're in the same schools. But we have a couple of private parochial and out of district schools that we're busing together. But again, all those kids on the bus that comprises a cohort.
Yeah.
Okay. I was on one of those parochial buses growing up as a kid. I had an 1.5-hour bus ride each way. So if you guys want to feel sorry for me, I think it's just funny that I work for a school transportation software company. That could have made it a lot more efficient, I'm sure.
I thought you were going to tell us you walked a mile uphill to school.
That's about the equivalent of that.
If you had Pathfinder back then, it only would have been an hour and 20 minutes.
Hey, no, it would have been 30 minutes. Very efficient, highly safe. But okay, so let's get right into the one of the key questions. And Bill, really, you're the one that raised it, so I'm going to go to you first. Ventilation on buses. What's it look like? Has it changed? Guidelines changed? I don't really just educate me on ventilation on buses.
I think when we talk about ventilation on buses, we need to look at where we're at now, and I think we would all agree that right now we have some windows open, roof hatches. Roof hatches are not only escape hatches, but they also serve as a vent. So roof hatches popped up in the vent position. We're directing air into the bus on you can either recirculate or you can draw in fresh cabin air. So we've got it all set up, which is and actually, believe it or not, even on really cold days, it's not too bad on the bus, but it is cold, right? And the kids are got to stay bundled up, etc. So, we're getting through the winter. We're coming, knocking on the door of spring. But that's what we've done, and we don't have very sophisticated HVAC systems on the buses. In my 30-plus years in the business, they haven't hardly changed at all. And I think that this isn't going to be over. It's not. I equate it to like you hear of when we have volcanic ash in the air. There's something or forest fire, and our skies get cloudy in the east, right? 2 weather fronts later, it blows over and the sky's clear again. So this is long term, and we got to start looking at, in my opinion, we have to start looking at how we're going to better manage air quality and improve air quality on the buses, so that when we didn't actually have too bad a winter, but when it's 10 below, how are we going to ensure appropriate air on the bus? So I think that the thing that really struck me as odd was STN did a reader survey, and I participated in that. Every month they'll have some question they put out, and if you participate, you get to see the results. But one of the question was, are you exploring, are you interested in improving air quality or adding something to handle air quality on your buses? And I replied, yes, I was looking into that. And I was in the 25 percentile, 75% of the people had no interest in that. Because that was, no, I have no interest, or there's no need. So, and I'm not saying those people are wrong. I'm just saying that, was an eyebrow raiser for me. I'm looking at that going, do we really want to be content where we are? And I think that varies around the country, where maybe seasonally you can have those windows open. So I have been working with a couple of different companies looking at, UV lights, air filtration, MERV 13 ratings on air filters, also looking at an air purification system that would kind of, you would retrofit into your heater cores and use the existing fan motors, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm very much in the school that at a very minimum you should be putting power roof vent hatch in your hatches, so that we have an exhaust system where we're at least drawing air out without having to open the roof hatch and have kids get rain and snow on them. But yeah, I just thought that's a very timely thing. Now is the time to be looking at that when you spec your bus, and if there's CARES money that comes available that perhaps we could use for this sort of air quality improvement in a school bus, I think I want to make sure we're poised to do that.
You got a couple of things I want to piggyback on, but I want to first go to Ted and Rich and Dave, of course, if you have anything you want to add. But I do have a question. I just jotted a note to myself. Rich, go ahead.
I think airflow is important, and if you look at the recent paper put out by the state of Massachusetts, they've reduced their distancing requirements based on the airflow in a school bus and not seeing problems. They're telling in this paper that the airflow changes over between 21 and 43 times a minute or per hour on a school bus. So that's interesting information about how often the air changes over on a school bus, and that's why they decided statewide to rescind their requirement for spacing on a school bus.
Very good.
So did they have any technology that assisted in that turnover, Rich, or was it just through open windows and fans, et cetera? Was there some add-on technology?
Windows, roof hatches, and the fans in the front.
Right. Ted, anything you want to add?
I mean, we've been working through ventilation. Like Bill said, we've been fortunate. It has not been a very cold winter. We've been keeping the couple windows cracked at minimum on the buses. Really, we've only seen a couple of parent complaints through the winter. But overall, it's been working.
Now, I'm an old movie guy, so you watch some of those old movies from the 30s. They had their cars were like open, and they're driving in the winter time. I'm like, so we gotta toughen up a little bit. Maybe that. Okay, I'm just kidding. But
I know we received some calls from some school districts where they've had issues with parents because they wanted the windows opened for the safety of their kids, and the challenge was some conflicts with labor unions who the drivers were cold. They weren't comfortable driving the bus. So to this whole issue, I think it's something that needs a good look, because as you know, the incidence of flus are way down this year because of all these things we have in place to combat COVID. And I'm confident that once we start coming out of this, that these questions of the quality of air inside of a school bus, where it's a very restricted, compact area, is going to come up, and we need to have some answers to that. And I'm not sure that just opening the windows is going to cut it. Once we're beyond this crisis.
Yeah.
So was there a change? Oh, go ahead, Bill.
Let me just plant this seed, something for us to think about, right? That, last year before, we do charter trips. I myself and my mechanics, my staff, we do a pre-inspection on charter buses. So you get on the coach buses, the windows, they don't open, right? And the roof hatches, they have a true HVAC system, and it runs down the side of the bus. And I think there's more of an air changeover. And I think that we lean on opening the windows because we have no other option, right? But I think we need to look and begin to, and this may be like a long-term thing, right? That we need to look at how other buses are built, how other mass transit handles HVAC and air filtration. And I got to tell you, I was talking with a vendor. He was giving me a little presentation about an air filtration system he had for the bus. And he said, I would change it at about the same interval you do the air filters that are on your bus now. I thought, well, that's an interesting point, because the air filters that are on our bus now are very crude, and we clean them in the summer, or if we have a problem and we're servicing a motor. But I think that Jason Johnson, when we had our task force for return to school, he was one that was hitting on the fact that we should be servicing our air filters on our heater cores more often. So, but the point is that there's an assumption that we have a filtration system that believe me, it's assumed that it's far more sophisticated than it is. It's basically a dust filter, so hair and lint balls don't get sucked into the heater core.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Rich.
I just wanted to mention, my contractor even went a little bit further. They did a study on the temperature in the bus and drove it with windows in various positions so that we could maintain that range of temperature that we had to meet for COVID, but still be above the minimum temperature inside a bus. and it worked pretty good controlling the temperatures by opening windows, certain distances. Suffolk Transportation was very good at working that out so that they could maintain a temperature that was acceptable inside the bus.
Now, have policies changed? Because I feel like I did a webinar last year, and it was on a national scale, and about that you weren't supposed to have your windows open, that there was concern about windows opening and blowing air all around the kids and maybe having a negative effect. Am I misremembering that, or has there been a change in?
No, that's been a CDC recommendation from the start to provide sufficient ventilation with fans and windows and windows open, et cetera. And just in checking the latest CDC update, they still say that to provide that kind of.
There was like a southern school district that there was. I remember it was in the south. I remember, isn't it really hot? And they go, yeah, well, we're not opening the windows. So I remember there was at least one district that was concerned about it. Before I get
just as a case in point, and all of us in the business know this, and Bill and I heard it clearly recently when we dealt with a national vendor on this air ventilation issue. What happens in other states is almost immaterial in terms of what happens in New York, because New York is so restrictive that any of our solutions have to be really looked at very closely, because we're a very, very restrictive state in terms of whatever we can do to a school bus, and which is is a good thing because it's for safety of kids, but it also makes you work a little harder to come up with these solutions.
Absolutely. Bill, were you going to say something?
No, that's fine. I was just going to hit on the same thing, that we need to have approval of our state agencies to use this stuff. And interestingly, I will add to Dave's comment, we've worked with a couple vendors and we're educating them really on what you need to do in New York. And Dave has gone so far as to connect them with the right people. So thank you, Dave, for your help with that. But the DOT on a couple of different air quality, I'll say, devices, they have referred that to SED, which normally handles the building approval for air handling units and things of that nature. So a little bit different because it's very specialized equipment, and DOT may not or did not necessarily have the correct people on staff to handle that. So we are working through that to sort through. We want to be a resource at NYAP to be able to share with people, what you can do, and so we're more to come on that. But I plan to try and get a couple things approved and try them on our buses.
Yeah, just for the attendees' sake, just an FYI, anything you put on your bus is not state aidable. Any of these add-ons that you might put on to improve air quality, it's not a state aidable item. So it's something that you want to keep in mind when you spend that money.
Excellent point. Thank you, David. I want to read a comment from somebody, and then a question from Kim, and then we'll move into vaccines. Melissa, by the way, she's from Ohio, and so I want to let you know that even though this is NYAP, we do encourage anybody across the country, North America, to come on. We've actually had some from other districts and other states on our panel as well. So just to realize that I think what happens here does have, you guys are impacting people in other parts of the country that are looking to see what solutions you're coming up with. Melissa says, just a point of fact for her, we have been no riders on seats 1 and 2, and then they have 2 per seat unless they're siblings, going to what I think Ted said. They must wear a mask. We haven't talked about masks. Hand sanitizers when they get on. It has worked, exclamation point, praise the Lord, no bus related outbreaks. So that's from Melissa. Thank you for sharing that. Thanks for joining us from Ohio. Masks still on the bus. Hand sanitizers, anything else on that? Okay, just seeing.
That's required.
Okay. I heard that is there still a diminished number of student incidents on the bus? Because some people have told me that the masks in some ways have brought one of the positive side effects is they're not really having as many issues with students getting into trouble on the bus.
Discipline is way better.
Yeah, student conduct issues have been significantly reduced. And I think some of that, some of that student conduct issues that are reduced because of the seating. We have assigned seating on every bus for every grade level, very new to us, and strategic separation, right? Like in every instance possible, you know, if there's only going to be 12 kids on the bus for the first 20 minutes, we don't let them all sit together in the back. They're all spread out. I can tell you that, and I have the data that shows it, right? Because we track all our student conduct reports. You know, we put them all into Transfinder. We add them in as documents, and I can run them on a grid. But way down, numbers are way down, or shall I say, the behavior is significantly improved.
I won't mention if I was one of those student disciplinary issues in my hour-and-a-half bus ride. Did I mention there was an hour-and-a-half long bus ride? Another quick note from Julie. Just wanted to say thank you for this discussion. We're a bit behind you. She's in Bakersfield, California. So we're a bit behind you in returning to school, but she just wanted to let you know that you're sharing a lot of great information. So now for a question from Kim. She's asking, are you having your drivers sanitize the buses between runs? After the morning or after evening runs? What's your, I know we've talked about this a lot, but I'm assuming that maybe some of these things have evolved or changed. So it's always worth getting us up to speed again. And Dave, I'm going to ask you to close us out on this section because maybe you can give me a sense of what you're hearing statewide. So for that statewide perspective, but well, why don't I just start with Rich, Bill, and then Ted in terms of your cleaning the buses.
We stayed with what we set up at the beginning. The drivers all have spray bottles and cloths, and they spray down all the high contact areas between runs, and the buses get a thorough cleaning at the end of the day.
Okay, great.
And we're 5 tiers, so we don't have a lot of time to spend wiping it down, but we do wipe down the buses between every trip.
Very good. Bill, Ted?
Go ahead, Ted.
So we're similar to Rich. We've wiped down seats in between tiers, all the hot spots. We've been using sanitizing wipes so that we don't have any liquids on the bus. And then at night, they all get misted down and sit overnight.
Very good. And then Dave, you want to give us a statewide kind of perspective?
Yeah, I think that's pretty consistently what we're seeing across the state. Interesting enough, when you read the literature, though, there seems to be folks out there, you know, people who are studying this, scientists, who are saying less focus on cleaning and sanitizing and more focus on air quality issues. So it's something that we probably need to think about going forward is all the money and expenses that we're spending on the cleaning and sanitizing, is that where we want to put all of our resources, or do we want to look at the air quality? And I'm not suggesting we do that today. I'm saying that's what the literature is starting to talk about more often than not.
Okay, very good. Real quickly, and I hope I don't say your name wrong, someone named Delos mentions that student conduct is much better, and this person believes that it may possibly be also because there's a fewer number of students on each bus. So not just the mask, well, it's a good perspective there. So let's move into vaccinations. And does your district have a policy? I mean, are drivers required to have them? I want to just kind of hear a sense of what's going on in your area. I know that they're still rolling them out, so not everybody even has access to vaccinations yet. But anybody can take this. All of you can take it. What's your area?
Yeah, I'll let you know what we're doing. First of all, there is no policy requiring staff, drivers, or others within the district to get the vaccine. It's purely voluntary. We have tried to take a very active approach in assisting our drivers in making appointments and helping them to find appointments. So, and that starts right with the superintendent. Our superintendent has been literally booking appointments for food service and transportation and assisting. So to that end, I am in our department, we're kind of keeping statistics, not certainly by any means to judge anyone whether they do or don't want it, but just so I have an inclination of where I'm at with vaccination. So right now I'm a little over 65% complete, and I think I have about 12 or 13% to go. of people that want it, and we'll land at about 20% of the people that don't want it. And interesting thing I will mention is I have had some parents reach out and ask me, they want to know, is my driver getting vaccinated? You know, have they been vaccinated? And I'm letting them know that that's personal and confidential information. So, but it's just interesting that you know, we would get that question, and for anybody who hasn't gotten it, you should anticipate it because it will come your way.
That's an excellent point. Just like you can't talk about who has had the virus. I mean, it's HIPAA, right? So, Ted or Rich, anything you guys want to add?
So some of the bill, we're just assisting our people with getting appointments, telling them what websites have information. If something pops up, we try and get it out so that they can get on the list first thing in the morning or get an appointment. No requirements. There's a lot of people that have gone, and we're kind of keeping track of who's gone, but no requirements. The only thing we did have is our contractor made arrangements for on-site testing. So that aided us in some people that had some concerns whether they had it or didn't have it, had a test without having to wait online for 4 hours. And they scheduled them and did a lot of testing of their people. They had one day that they had 110 people out, either drivers or driver assistants, and it's down around the 25 to 30 now. So it was just something that helped out and then worked out well.
Great.
So, if everybody's aware, the governor actually just signed a new executive order on Monday, which actually started yesterday of the schools having to track who has vaccination, who's been vaccinated and not. That data will eventually be up to their website, similar to the school report cards on exposures and positive cases. So the schools are required to track that now for all staff. And that's a conversation that the districts are having with their local health departments. As far as the vaccines, we still see the same thing. I'm sure you guys are seeing it in your areas as well. There's a shortage of them coming to local health departments to be distributed. We actually did a mass vaccination site here at our district for staff and others as well. But so we were able to really get a large number of our folks that wanted the vaccine done. So,
Could I ask if any of you have bus drivers who opted out of work until the vaccine was available, and now they're willing to come back to work?
Yeah, the vaccine has literally yielded me, I think it's going to yield me 3 drivers coming back. So, you know, that we're out, as you say, Dave, they were out because of COVID, and they said when I can at least be vaccinated, I'll be back. So
Back to work,
we got people starting to come back March 15th.
Excellent. You know, talking a little bit about the future, do you see things like assigned seats and attendance just becoming part of the norm post-pandemic? And then if so, I am curious, what do you use to do attendance? Not to sound too commercially, but, you know, Transfinder has a couple methodologies to be able to do that simply. But do you see that stuff happening post-pandemic when the world returns to normal, that assigned seats and attendance are necessary? I see you shaking your head, Bill, so I'll start with you first, and Ted and Rich.
Assigned seats and attendance, just to name a few, are things that I think, and we may have talked about it here, but I know I talked about it with my staff, that we've looked at all the things we had to change to accommodate to the pandemic and said, okay, what are we going to take with us when we come out the other side? And we've always done afternoon attendance, but now we do morning, and I think we'll continue to do the attendance. We are definitely, in my opinion, going to hold on to the assigned seating. And, you know, I've been thinking about what that means. Like when I do my student rollover in my routing database, I have it in the user-defined character field, and then we were able to import that into School Tool and back and forth. So I think that once a kid owns a seat, we'll have them continue in that seat. So really the only ones I have to do is like if they switch schools, they would need a new seat in the middle school bus or a new seat on the Manor school bus, that type of thing. But yeah, we're going to hold on to them, and we are using TransFinder. It's been a godsend for us to be able to print out attendance sheets and to plot the seating assignments and track them. I don't know, you know, we would have, it worked out great. And, you know, knowing that we have enough flexibility in the routing system that we can do those sorts of things.
Great. Ted, Rich?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think the seating charts and the attendance are going to stay. I think they'll be with us for the future. It's a great tool to have. I think this helped push that. So maybe a positive that came out of this. We are using same thing. We're a TransFinder client, so we use the printed attendance sheets currently. We're trying to transition over to the mobile app. So we've got tablets for all the buses now. We're going to be putting the mobile app in. Time is always an issue for me, so getting that done. I don't have a staff to help me with that. So, but that's where we're transitioning to. So it'll be all electronic.
Great.
Just an observation in terms of the DeLoss's comment about smaller load levels and better student management. I wonder if that's going to be an issue when things go back to whatever normal is, where the load levels start to increase again, and we start seeing, you know, student management issues like we've seen in the past. Certainly, that's one of the reasons that we have trouble recruiting drivers. You know, you hear people say, "Oh, I couldn't deal with the kids." So the question becomes, will smaller load levels be something that we would embrace? You know, post pandemic, and if that's the case, how do we do that in terms of cost and numbers of buses and drivers? Again, not advocating for that, but just putting it on the table and something to think about.
Yep.
I was just going to say, I'm doing roughly the same thing as Ted and Bill. I think having assigned seats also helps you with discipline reviews too, because you can pull the tape and you know that little piece of hair that you have sitting there that you can't tell who it is. Now you know who it is, and it's helped identify who is really causing the problems.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's here to stay.
That's a great point, Rich.
Yeah, sure.
I think Dave's point, I'm kind of worried about the budget, and if we start losing too much money from transportation, whether we're going to go back to efficiency being filling up the bus as full as we can possibly get it versus the safety and discipline on the bus. That's something to keep in mind.
Sure.
I would tell you that we're not alone in realizing the benefits of less density, right? Because we've been, you know, I've been at the school district, we have our budget presentations, et cetera. And especially at the elementary school where, you know, maybe we have 24 kids or 25 kids to a class because of COVID, that's been broken down to maybe, you know, 15 kids to a class. And when the question was asked of some of the faculty presenting, you know, what things would you like to take with you that we've learned in the pandemic? And they said smaller class size, because the interaction is so much better. We feel like they're easier to manage. We get more productive time. So, you know, there's whether we're all seeing that, whether or not we're going to be able to hold on to that and take it forward, I don't know. But there's definitely a lesson there, Dave, as you stated, something to keep in the back of our mind.
A teacher wanting a smaller class size is shocking.
Yeah, you said.
I have not verified this. I'm just going to throw it out there. James mentions this in the comment section that the New York State Department of Health informed superintendents last night that requesting and reporting vaccination information is not required at this time. I haven't verified it. Ted, you guys can verify that. Okay.
I have a document from me from our attorneys that shows that new executive order 202.95.
Yeah, but Ted, did you hear? I think what James is saying is that was put on hold. I think that came out late yesterday, like in the evening. I think it's legalities and some union issues, and there was a hold put on that. Is that what you're saying, Rick?
I think that's what I think so. There's a, yeah, It's like a,
I had an email from Sainies earlier this morning that was put out last night that said that that was a hold, and I know we were scrambling to report the data from our district, and they didn't want to know. Interestingly, they only wanted to know about teachers. They weren't worried about custodians and food service and support service people, bus drivers. So, but I heard that was on hold while they sort out some things.
I don't think
All right.
Biden's down, so.
well, we are already at 12:25. We always try to end right on time, 1 hour. So I want to go through the horn. I asked Tony to come back on as well and give us some takeaways. And Dave, without fail, you always say I'm last, and then they all took my great ideas and everything. So I'm going to put you at the head of the line so we can give you the chance to be the first and freshest ideas. And I know you never fail, even when you're the last guy, you never fail to deliver. But I'm going to ask you to start, and then I'll just go through the line. Ted, Bill, Rich, Tony, and then I'll just close us up and give us an announcement. But what's one thing, and by the way, I want to thank all the people who have asked questions and raised comments because they have been phenomenal today. And James, just even your last point there was super helpful for just us making sure that we get the latest information, and that's just really, really super. So anyway, without further ado, what's one takeaway, Dave, you want folks who attended to bring back to the office?
Well, I'm going to take a little extra time because you skipped me on the leadership question, so I'm going to add to that too as well. So I'm
my goodness.
Only kidding. That's okay. That's okay. No, I think the takeaway is, and this goes back to the leadership piece. How I've changed and adapted is certainly flexibility. I think some of our panel members mentioned that. And always striving to figure out how you can reach our members and the industry as a whole. How can we reach and reach out effectively and better serve your needs? And this applies to school district transportation operations as well. How can we better serve your needs in this environment where we can't, gather and be more of a community? And I think that's the challenge, and that's probably a challenge we're going to probably have to deal with for many months to come here. So that's the takeaway. I understand that that's what we need to do, and I'm trying to figure out the best ways to do that, and certainly these webinars are one way to do that.
That's great. Thank you. And I'm sorry for not getting cut you off.
I'm good.
Ted.
I'm good.
Dave took my answer.
Feel my pain, Ted.
I mean, we're always, even though we're here as panelists, we're always taking things back. I've been making notes here as we're talking, and there's different things to learn. And don't be afraid to learn. There's always something there that we might not be up on or need to know. Don't be afraid to learn. Be open to learning and be able to share what you learn with others so that nobody has a problem where they have to deal with a bad situation.
That's great. That's super. Bill?
Yeah, and I would say, Rick, like you mentioned your hour-and-a-half bus ride each way, and the old joke about it was uphill both ways, right, to and from school. So I'm going to say, and I don't mean this in a negative way. I mean this. I'm just being a realist, right? That this is uphill both ways. It was an uphill climb coming back, right, and getting. When this thing hit, it was an uphill climb to get where we are now, and
Sure.
we're not going to coast into next year or coast into the future. It's going to be uphill both ways. So just to maintain the mindset and the confidence, keep your inner circle close, anticipate what's ahead, and be ready for it.
That's great. That's good. Rich?
I guess the biggest thing I take from these things is everybody seems to focus on something a little bit different. I kind of focus on laws and regs and student issues. Bill kind of keeps up on all the maintenance and the ventilation and that sort of things and so forth. So keep in contact with your peers. You can learn from them, and everybody keeps looking at this in a different way, but learn from your peers. That's what I think.
That's outstanding. And that's actually one of the things I was thinking about with, Bill and your inner circle idea too. That's all about learning and being open and adaptable. Tony, close us out.
Well, obviously, that's the big word is agile, right? Be able to change things. So now at this point, it's been part of our vocabulary. Bill, I'm not sure if it's Bill or Rich, one of you guys. I think I know you guys for over 25 years. I'm not sure that the whole, I've learned it from one of you guys, maybe from you, Ted, but I think I know Bill a little bit longer. But I remember that I learned it from one of you guys about the term of walking to school uphill both ways. Never heard that before. Obviously, that's almost a quarter of a century ago, but I love that term. I gotta tell you, made me think. Something about I think it was Bill or Ted. Someone asked about that. Parents wanted to know about if your driver was vaccinated. Wow. I know right now it's all HIPAA laws, and there's no way. There's going to be a moment that clearly, as a parent, I want to tell you, that made me realize, well, should I start asking the teachers about this stuff? I get it. It's not, I don't want to know who is, who's not, but I want to know how is my kid safe? I'm just curious. This is going to be like a wait and see kind of stuff, right? That's, as we have a plan today, we're going to have to be changing our plans. I'm just curious about that. And by the way, Rick, you're probably doing your moderator, and a great job, everybody. Just want to tell you, I know this is a New York State webinar and a meeting, but we had people from Canada, we had people from Ohio, Massachusetts, Oklahoma, Texas, California, and I'm sure I missed some of you. So sorry, I'm just scanning through. And we had different people, clients and prospects. So wow. And I apologize if I forgot somebody. Clearly, New York, everyone's got eyes on you guys. So I just want to remind you. So again, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Tony. And again, I want to thank our panelists, Ted, Bill. I think about Bill and Ted, and I was like, why do those names sound so good together? Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. Rich, and of course, David and Nayab, and your leadership, phenomenal. You guys never disappoint. Time always flies by. I want to draw everybody's attention to the slide that if you do have a story of what you've done, what's worked for you, maybe what hasn't worked for you, because everyone's talking even today about lessons learned and how we can learn from each other and even from our mistakes. Please send it to mystory@transfinder.com, whether you're a Transfinder client or not, and whether you're in New York or not. We would love to, maybe you'll be on a panel if you were willing to do that. So just please do that. And also I want to let you know our next webinar will be on March 25th. So it's literally exactly a month from today, Thursday, 11:30. Tony said he likes March and February because you know what day of the week it's going to be, because it's the exact same unless it's a leap year. So anyway, I just want to mark your calendars. We will keep these to an hour, and just again, super grateful for all that we learned today. And for now, have a great rest of your day and rest of your week.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye bye.